Ladies and gentlemen, what the world has been waiting for, what the world needs now, the one, the only, amazing, original, Johnny Blaze. Often imitated, but never duplicated. There's Johnny.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all to the original Johnny Blaze Show. It's great to be here as I blaze writing with my karate kick. Let's have a blazing hot fun time. It has been said that marriage is when a man and a woman become as one. The trouble starts when they try to decide which one. Marriage is full of surprises, but eventually it just turns into two people yelling at each other. Do you have to do that right now? Last week I was out on a date with a single mother. She kept saying, I have 2 kids, and I can still fit inside my prom dress. I told her, well, I got 2 vaccine shots, and I can still fit inside my sweatpants. Kids today are soft. I died once when I was 5, and my mom told me, walk it off. I have one cup of coffee every morning just to start the day off right. The other ones are to keep me out of jail, help me form sentences, and fuel my razor-sharp wit. Forgiveness, that's supposed to be the secret to a long, happy marriage. If I can forgive my wife for not being as hot as Angelina Jolie, then she should be able to forgive me for not being as rich as Bill Gates. A wife told her husband, take a look at our neighbors across the street. Every day the husband kisses his wife before he leaves for work. Why don't you do that? Good idea, the husband said. The coast is clear. I'll be right back. The problem with getting a marriage license is that nobody knows when the expiration date is. We have a blazing hot fun show, ladies and gentlemen, with a special guest. He is a multi-talented and award-winning actor, producer, director, writer, and podcast host. So please give a big warm welcome and say hello to Dalton Burdette. Hey, Dalton.
Hi there.
Dalton. How you doing, Dalton Burdette?
Good. How are you?
Real good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Looking great. Okay. Dalton, yeah, you know, everybody has their own special story of how they got started in entertainment. It's all unique. Everybody's story is unique and different and special. So give me a rundown of how you got started in entertainment and where you're from, and tell me everything about that, Dalton.
Well, my story kind of starts when I was really, really young. My mama, my grandmother, and I used to watch movies all the time. And whenever I would go over there, it was back then in like the late 90s, early 2000s, on the Sci-Fi Channel, they would play like the 50s B movies. And she was just like, oh, this is what I ate up when I was a kid. You got to watch these. And I was like, all right. And of course, being young, seeing like these really cheesy monsters, like I loved it. And so, always loved them as a kid. And then when I a preteen, moved to Florida, still loved movies, didn't really pursue it a whole lot though. And then around early high school, I actually really wanted to take an interest and start doing this. I started just making some dumb videos with some friends of mine. And then when I was about a sophomore in high school, the high school had like this morning TV show, like news show it would put out to all the students. And I was like, well, I guess that's something that I can do to try to practice. And so I signed up for the class, and the teacher, he had all of this equipment that, when you look at it, was, nice for the class, but to me, it was the first time I'd ever seen like real film equipment. So I was like, oh my God, this was like, I found the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And he was just like, I told him a little bit about my aspirations, and he was just kind of said, all right, well, there's all the stuff. Class is 90 minutes long. Make sure you put everything back when you're done. And so I got to practice and make a bunch of stuff. And then when I got to college, I started to make some stuff for friends and family within the friend group that I formed. From that, we formed a production company called Movie Nights Productions, and we then started making short films seriously around 2017.
Okay, that's cool. So it seems like to me you do some short films. Do you prefer doing the short films or longer? It seems like to me you do more short films than anything else. Do you prefer short or the longer ones?
The longest film I've ever done was about 32 minutes, and making feature-length films is something that we hope to get to one day. it was just a lesson in budgeting, fundraising. Right now, we do the best we can with what we can gather and what we have, and I think the stepping stone into getting into feature films is to kind of cut your teeth on short films, short form storytelling, and a good way to practice and get some kinks out before you kind of try to step it up into the next stage.
It makes a lot of sense, Dalton. It really does. Yeah, but what I've seen, it looks special. Your film, the current one, The Local. Congratulations on that. I understand that it was a spectacular, blazing hot success. You just had the premiere last night.
Yes, it just premiered last night at the Valerie Theater in Inverness, Florida.
Yes, and looks like you sold out, right, over there?
That's true. Which, to everyone's surprise, we sold out of tickets. We actually sold out before, about 5 hours before the show started, I think, and which was a huge surprise. A lot of people in the community really came out to support the theater and to see the movie. I went to high school in that town, and they were nice enough to kind of put an article in the paper about the whole thing, and that's what we think kind of bolstered the extra attention on it. And we sold 150 tickets. It was wonderful. It was such a nice surprise.
That's great. And then, of course, what I heard is that you afterwards there was a panel. It was a question and answer panel talking about the film, because the film is called The Local, and you were talking about it, getting people's opinions, not only the people in the audience, but I guess you, the filmmaker, and all the people that worked on your show, your film. And so that's really great.
Thank you so much.
So I'm happy that that worked out for you. Yeah. I don't know if you're at liberty. I mean, I did see a screener on that. I don't know if you're willing at liberty to give us. It was a premiere. If you're willing to, if you could give a spoiler alert for anybody out there on this show or not, if you're not able to talk about it or not on this movie.
We can talk about it. There are certain key things that I will leave out in talking about it, but I'm perfectly comfortable talking about a lot of things in the film. The only thing is there are certain characters who don't make it all the way to the end, and those are things that I'll stay tight-lipped on for to remain a surprise.
Well, whatever you're comfortable with, that's for sure. Yeah, give us a rundown. How did you create it? What it's about? The characters and some kind of a plot about it and everything.
So basically, the story it's based off of old Western movies, and the reason why I was interested in making a movie like that was because, I thought about the trope in a Western where this hero kind of comes in from out of town, saves the little town, and then leaves. And then the town just kind of waves goodbye. They ride up into the sunset, and then there's no kind of consequences to what happens after that person leaves and saves this town. Well, what if there's a situation where the kind of hero who saved the small town lived there, was a local there, and then after he did that, everyone was suddenly like, "Hey, you're gonna keep doing this? We kind of expect you to do this all the time now." Which, it would take that person back, and it would have kind of sort of negative consequences, especially if that person has a traumatic experience doing something under that expectation and then kind of completely turns his back on the people who put him in that situation. And so I kind of wanted to tell that story, but also, have an antagonist come into the story and have the antagonist kind of stay within the trope of coming in from out of town and wreaking havoc, and just seeing it conflict the lead character about if, because he desperately feels like it's in his true nature to help and he wants to help, but at the same time, he doesn't want to do it for the people who forced him to. He wants to do it when he wants to, and he's not even sure if he wants to do that anymore. So basically the story is just that whole idea playing out over the course of about a half an hour.
Yes, I noticed that there was the bullies were there, were bullying and everything, and they were having their good old time. And this character Jackson, was able to stand up to them. And not at first, but eventually he was able to. Mm-hmm. And that's what some of the people wanted him to do. And he was, you're right. He was upset at first. He didn't want to do it, but eventually he decided to do it. Well, of course, it's always better to be a hero than a zero. That's for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. So he's the man that's saving the day. No, that takes a certain kind of a special talent to put that together. How did you create such a masterpiece? And how did you come up with creating these characters and directing this? And even
Well,
though it's only over 32 minutes, still it's not always quantity, it's quality also.
yeah, well, thank you so much for the kind words and saying that. I really appreciate that. But in creating the story and the characters, a lot of it was just a lot of writing and just kind of seeing where it would take me. A lot of people have different writing styles, and I don't really have a consistent one that stays on every project I do. It kind of varies itself project to project. And with this particular one, I just kind of came up with the character of Jackson and was just kind of writing what his day would be like. And then it's like, all right, and with the mind of a Western, he probably goes to a saloon. So in the updated version, it was a coffee shop, and he's, probably likes going there because maybe he trusts the person there, and then that's how you get the character of Samantha, the owner of the shop. And then the story just kind of gradually grew. And in terms of building the other characters, the character of Samantha, played in the movie by Roxy Rivera, that character in earlier versions wasn't really as fleshed out as it was. And then when the amazing actress Roxy reached out to me and wanted to work with me, I was like, oh, well, I can make her this character, but this character, if we're going to give her this character, then this character deserves to be a whole lot better. And I did a whole new couple drafts of it where you can tell there's this implied backstory, this implied history with her and Jackson, and their friendship seems very platonic, but then the way they interact and talk, and it's like maybe it could have been something more, but it's not. We didn't want to quite give all the information away because we want to leave some up to the imagination. And then you also have the character of Madison, another woman in Jackson's life who their relationship seemed at one point to be a lot more than platonic, and they're clearly not together anymore, but maybe something happened with Jackson's responsibilities being fallen upon him. We kind of wanted to leave that up in the air too, as to what exactly happened there, to where clearly they're no longer romantically involved, but they don't hate each other. Like, they still respect and like each other. And then the character of Rex, the main villain, played by the amazing Michael Shank. That character in the script was just from out of town and a bully. And when I gave the part to Michael Shank, he really wanted to have fun with the character, wanted to do a lot with it, and he would constantly call me and Zoom me and have meetings about he personally saw Rex's backstory, how we thought, where he came from, why he does what he does. So instead of showing up on set and having two different ideologies, we kind of just got on the same page beforehand. And the thick accent that the character has was actually his idea, because he said, well, if, the hero of the town is the local, then I should probably have an identifier to let the audience know that my character is not from here. And I was like, that's an excellent idea, and it's one of the many great things about his performance.
I see. Well, it sounds like you probably do research and probably get experience from probably some of your experiences, and also research to be able to come up with such great ideas and then put them into play, of course. Correct?
Yeah, no, the research, a lot of it is just there's a couple screenwriting books that I really like. There's, the best school for any filmmaker is movies. Just, sometimes it can be a movie you didn't even think was going to affect you in that way. Like, sometimes you watch a movie and you see a character's journey and that went overlooked, and then suddenly you're rewatching it at one point and you're like, wow, I never noticed the journey that this character went on, and I've seen this movie like 100 times. And it really just kind of gets you in that creative mindset to think about, okay, you've seen a full character's journey. How can you apply that to a character that you're currently making, and just kind of try to mesh what you've seen, what you've read with what you want to create, and try to apply that. A lot of it is, it sounds difficult, but really just, if you have the imagination and you have the ability to watch, observe, and kind of take in how to kind of lay out a character arc, it all really just comes together nicely.
I see. Would you say any background you have, any training, you have school background of any training of that, any of that would help you at all in your filmmaking efforts?
Yeah, no, I have a bachelor's degree in film from the University of Central Florida. I'd say that was really helpful. I really enjoyed my time at the school. I did a BA program. It wasn't as hands-on, but it was still, I had a lot of teachers that were really impactful and influential on me. I was very grateful just for the way that they spoke about movies, the way that they kind of allowed the students to kind of put in their opinions and kind of see things and have it spelled out before. Because basically what I'm getting at is they never tried to tell a student how they should feel about a certain thing. And they wanted to have them kind of express their own opinions, express their own feelings, because that is kind of the first step into creating yourself, is feeling yourself and, you know, being able to express your opinions, express your emotions without any preconceived idea or notion, so that when it comes time for you to create yourself, you don't have those preconceived notions either. So I think that that tool is what, it's from my education, is probably what helped me the best in this situation.
That's great. So that means there's no prejudices, no preconceived ideas. You're going in naturally and doing what you want to do through your own experience, your own creative. Nobody's telling you, you got to do this, you got to do that. You're able to do it in a sincere way, you know, and let your I guess your creativity, your spirit be the guide, your research and your passion. So that's wonderful. I think that's great, Dalton. Yeah, very good. Now there's you had some other, you do have some other films too. There was a movie called Contrition. Tell me about that.
Yeah, Contrition was a horror film we made in 2019. It was part of the Orlando Independent Filmmakers Edge Challenge, and it's about 6 minutes. It was a story that was co-written by a good friend of mine named Nick Iricchio, and that story was fun. It kind of just started off as a basic home invasion story, but then for anyone who's seen the film knows there's a very sci-fi twist to that basic idea, and you know, crafting that, making that was a lot of fun. And basically the main theme of that film is one of guilt and, you know, the desire for a second chance. And a lot of the times in filmmaking and in movies, that type of theme would be explored in just a straight drama, or like I said, a hardcore drama. But, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Dramas are excellent, but, you know, something that a lot of people don't discuss in regards to guilt and a desire for a second chance is those feelings are scary. It's sad, but it's also, you know, if you ever felt extremely guilty about something before, it's something that you're scared to admit, would be perfect to explore in that realm.
I see. And then there was a movie called No More Safe Haven too. You have that. Tell me about that. No More Safe Haven.
Yes, No More Safe Haven was our first official short film. It was an action short film that we shot and completed in 2017. You know, at first we didn't know if it was going to do well, because it was the first one that we really wanted to take seriously and send to festivals, and we made it. We were like, oh, I kind of like it. Let's see how it does. And luckily we got a couple of festival awards, you know, nothing too major, nothing too crazy, but it was the first time I got to go to the Hollywood, Florida Film Festival, which is one of my favorite film festivals to go to. Min and Simona, the people who run that, are really, really great people. And 2 years after it came out, actually, in 2019, it got a 1-week theatrical of Derek Quick was putting together a block of short films to screen theatrically as sort of this campaign to help out, you know, short filmmakers get their stuff on the big screen. And I was just fortunate enough to where No More Safe Haven was chosen to be a part of that. So, you know, I got to go out to LA and see the movie on a big screen, and it was so great. It was so much fun.
So you won many awards now can you tell me, give me a rundown of the different awards that you have won, film festivals and awards that you won in your different movies. And there was one other movie too, as I was gonna say, there was another one. I think it was some kind of it was a comedy.
Yes. In 2018, we made a comedy called The Long Hard Day.
Right.
It was just a basic story. Basically, the title is a double entendre in that the characters do go through an actual long, hard day, but also one of the leads is suffering from the side effects of an erectile dysfunction pill. And the story is about the two friends trying to get to the hospital to help the friend out, and everything just goes wrong on the path to the hospital. And that was just a fun idea that we kicked around at one of the festivals we were at, and then we eventually developed it into a movie. That was a lot of fun too.
That sounds like fun and very entertaining, yeah. Tell me a rundown then of all the different awards, film festival awards, and I guess awards in general that you have for the different films that you've done. Give me an idea.
I don't know if I'll remember all of them, but ones that I can think of. The first one that we won was for No More Safe Haven. It was I won Best Actor in a Short Film at the Hollywood Photo Film Festival, which was super fun. No More Safe Haven won a couple of awards, mostly just for the action choreography. Contrition won at the Creepy Tree Film Festival. I was one of the winners of Best Director. We also won, I believe, Best Sound Design. I won Best Short Horror Screenplay for that at the Olympus Film Festival in Los Angeles. And for the local, so far we've won Best Script at the LA Sun Film Fest. We've won an award of merit for Best Action at the Vegas Movie Awards. And two of my actors, Michael Shank and Vittoria Resinetti, have won Best Supporting Actor and Best Supporting Actress at the IndieX Film Fest last month. So I'm really, really excited for them, and just overall excited with the performance of how it's been doing.
Well, that's a motivator. That's a real excitement. That is. That means that you're on the right track. You're doing the right things. Getting these awards, you're getting recognized. You're getting the word out. You know, it's being promoted properly. That's for sure. Oh yeah, your publicist, great job. Bruce is, giving me some good, information. I'm sure he's helping you and promoting you really well. And he's a great guy to work with.
Oh yeah, no, Bruce is the best. I've known Bruce for many years, and not only is he a really good friend, but he's really devoted. And whatever you come to him and ask for help, he's going to give you his all.
How did you meet Bruce? How did you?
Ironically, his wife Wendy was my AP World History teacher in high school.
Really? It's a small world.
Yes, very small world. And they weren't together at the time when I knew her, but she was one of my favorite teachers. And after high school, I stayed in touch with her just because, going to college, you need guidance sometimes. So you kind of tend to reach out to your older teachers that you really liked. And she was always kind enough to reach out to me and, help me out. And then it eventually formed into a friendship. And then she met Bruce. And as they were dating, I eventually had dinner with them and got introduced to Bruce and his whole world. And I was fortunate enough to go to their wedding. And just ever since then on, I also developed a really good friendship with Bruce, and it's continued since then.
That's great. It's all worked out. All's well that ends well.
Yeah,
you're
right.
Networking. You're meeting the right kind of people. That's for sure, Dalton. No, that's really something. Yeah. What do you now? What's a typical day now as a director or an actor on the set and everything? And what do you have any preferences as far as things that you entertain that you like doing, whether it be writing or directing or doing films or anything else that you're doing? Is there anything that you have a favorite? And give me a rundown of a typical day as an actor or even as a film director. Good job.
My favorite things to do are definitely write and direct. I also love editing. I've edited all of my short films and, acting. A typical day on set as a director mostly just consists of a lot of stress. It's a lot of, getting there as early as possible, trying to set up for the first shot, sitting with your DP or your cinematographer and just going over the shot list, going over whatever storyboard you might have. And then you always have a plan, and then there's something that comes up and you have to adjust your plan, even though you're kind of writing your whole day on maybe this being the plan. So you have to not only deal with technical issues, but you also have to remember that at the end of the day, you're telling a story. So whatever technical issues you change, you have to then take into account, is this going to affect the story or the tone or vibe of the scene? And then once the actors arrive and once cameras start rolling, you're focusing on the lighting, you're focusing on the camera angles, but most importantly, you're focusing on actors' performance. And since you have to focus on a lot of things at once, there are different directors who have different strategies for how to keep things going on a set. And what I like to do with actors in particular is I like to have meetings with them as much as possible before we start shooting. Like I mentioned with Michael, just to make sure that we're on the same page and we're both passionate about telling the same story.
I see.
Because sometimes, actors, understandably, they get a role and they want to go crazy with it and they want to, bring a backstory and do all this thing, which I encourage, but at the same time, if there's something that I fundamentally disagree with their interpretation of the character, that's something that needs to be ironed out beforehand, or else you show up on set and you're trying to make one movie, they're trying to make another movie, and it turns into an extra stress that could have been avoided. And that's really what you want to do as a director, is try to eliminate stresses that are unnecessary. And so by doing that, by having those meetings beforehand with actors when you're on set, you don't have to worry as much about performance, because you know that you're both on the same page as to what type of movie you want to make, and you can kind of divide your attention onto the other things that you need to worry about as well.
What if the actor now? What if they're not cooperative? They're not on. Say they're not on time, or they're uncooperative, and they want to do it their way instead of doing it the way what you're thinking. How do you deal with something like that?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to where a lot of the actors I've worked with haven't done that, but in the few occasions that has happened, and like I said, I've never had this on a massive level. Like, I've never had someone throw like a tantrum on set before. That's kind of something when you're casting that you try to see in people and iron out so that you don't have to deal with that. But in the few times that that's happened, and sometimes it's not just actors, sometimes like it can be a cinematographer, it can be a sound person, and really it partially is you have to get over your gut reaction of, why are you arguing with me? Because that's kind of the gut feeling at first, is like, why? Like, it's emotion. And then you have to kind of take a step back from that and think to yourself, they wouldn't just bring this up unless they thought that this is going to help the movie. So you can't get too mad at them, because you both have the same goal. You both want this thing that you're working on to be as good as it can be. And as long as they're arguing from that standpoint and not from a selfish one, then whatever we have going on set can be ironed out. And normally how that works out is I call for a break, I pull the person aside, we discuss the differences, we get it done, and then we go back, resume, and try again. If anyone, I've never had someone get into an argument over something selfish or just something they wanted something this way for X, Y, Z. Because if that did ever happen, I just simply would fire that person and not work with them. So
I got you. Of course. Well, you have your own strategy and your own organization, your own way of doing it. I'm sure everybody has their own technique that they direct. How do you get into roles now as an actor? Now, are you able to get into the role? You got to take on a different, role now. When you're acting, whatever part it is. How do you get into that?
Different people have different strategies. Mine particularly is I always try to give my character something that doesn't inherently belong to me. Like Jackson, for example, has black hair. I do not have black hair. And part of that reason for the story reason for that is just, it kind of having someone with a dark hair, pale skin. It's invictive of sort of that Tim Burton style of, you see somebody and you immediately understand, like, okay, this person clearly isn't the happiest in their life and they have a history and something's going on. And you don't even have to really do any of that with your story, because as soon as you see the person, you kind of understand. Being able to give myself an attribute that isn't mine, it helps remind me while I'm on set, like, it helps me get into character. It helps me know that, okay, as soon as I say action, Dalton kind of sits on the bench, and now it's time for Jackson to come in and live the life and tell the story and show the future audience the story through Jackson. And so, some people, I won't name names, but I know some people who they get into a set just they get into character just by listening to a certain song. I know some people who get into character by, once they're in makeup, that's when they immediately are just ready to go. And I know some people who just get into character on, like, you can just snap your fingers and it's just like, boom, they're different and ready to go. So it all really depends, but something that I try to do for myself personally is give myself an attribute that wouldn't normally belong to me.
So that sparks you is what it does. It reminds you. It sounds like it gets you excited. Any particular, what are your favorite type of movies? You prefer comedy, or you prefer drama, or action, or what kind of or documentaries? What kind of movies do you prefer?
I don't mean for this to sound like a cop-out answer, but the truth is I love all genres of movies. If I had to pick a particular favorite, you know, it depends on it depends on the day, depends on the year. You know, there are some times where I have really rough years, and just a really good comedy can make one day out of a bad year just really great and really better. You know, there are some days where I really admire and love horror films because I think one of the most powerful things about movies is visual storytelling and being able to tell a story just through looks. That's why, you know, I like looking at paintings, I like looking at drawings, because it evokes the same thing. And with horror, you're literally showing somebody to evoke the emotion of fear. And a lot of the time, it's not, you know, no one says something scary or, you know, writes something scary. It's just you're seeing something that is making you feel unsettled. And I think that whole idea is really fascinating and can teach other filmmakers, because I mean, look at how many amazing filmmakers have started out in horror. Like, you know, Sam Raimi did The Evil Dead, and then he went on to do Spider-Man. You know, there's countless examples of that. And action, I love good action films. There are a lot of bad action films that you know, kind of put the action as a separate thing and just kind of want big name stars, not hire good stunt performers, not have good stunt choreography, have really shaky cameras, and try to hide the fact that they had bad fighting and stunts. But there are some movies who treat the fighting and stunts as its own art. And those movies are really fascinating to watch, like recent examples like the John Wick movies, the Raid films, anything from Hong Kong back in the 70s. Like, there are tons of movies that just literally treat its action sequences as if it's its own movie and own story. Like, you'll hear stunt coordinators, stunt choreographers talking to each other and say, okay, so this is, in this shot, we're trying to tell this story. And it's literally two people punching. But to them, it's telling a story. It's the story of how am I going to dodge this hit and land my next one. It's, you know, it's its own art form. And there are many, many great action movies that treat those scenes as their own art form. So, you know, just all of those genres I love. And, you know, I wanted to give specific examples and reasons so that my answer didn't seem as cop-out when I said I like all of them. So,
okay. Any particular ones? What do you think of the superhero, you know, like Superman or Batman or Spider-Man or those super characters?
I love superhero movies, kind of inspired by superhero movies, like the Western and the superhero movie a little bit. And, you know, I'm a big Marvel fan. I'm a big DC fan. And this is the Johnny Blaze show. And Johnny Blaze in Marvel Comics is Ghost Rider. And I love Ghost Rider. So as soon as I saw the name of the show, I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, Ghost Rider, that's cool. So, you know, I love superheroes.
Well, yeah, you know that. Well, that one. Well, actually, Nicolas Cage played in that role. It came from a comic character, and it's about a guy that made a deal with the devil on a motorcycle, a black leather jacket and everything, and a fireball and everything. That's what it was. So, yeah, there. No, I did not. I didn't even know that existed at the time when they came up with it. That's right.
Great minds.
Yeah, how about that? I'm just creative, and it came up with something. I thought a hot, sexy name. I love the name. So There you go. Right. Well, that's interesting. That is very interesting. Now you're also besides these you're versatile and talented. And you're also, I've noticed you've done probably over 50 podcasts. You're a podcast host, and I've seen it on your the movie nights. You do a whole podcast on the movie nights. I've seen you do it by yourself, but I also see it with a partner, Ryan. You do it, and yeah, tell me about some of those. You've had some very interesting episodes and everything. I think you did have one about actors. How come the actors get the blame for you know, movies that are not so great? That was one of them. You had many others. I think the first one has something to do with Idris. I'm trying to think. Idris Elba or something takes on. I can't remember exactly. You can.
Yeah, no. See, it's funny you bring that up, because one of the first ones we did, a story we covered, because in our podcast we cover movie news stories and, you know, whatever comes out of the Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline. We kind of basically try to treat it like the movie version of like ESPN and talk about like all the drama of the movie world and what's going on. And at that time, we found out that Idris Elba was going to be in the new Suicide Squad movie, which comes out like next weekend. So we covered that story like a year and a half ago when he first got cast in the movie, and now it's coming out. And so that's kind of cool to think about. But yeah, no, the podcast that I do is we talk about different movie news topics. We kind of bring up our own topics to discuss, like any hot button topics, like you said. Like we were just having a conversation one day, a friend of mine and I, and we were just like, you know, how come whenever there's a movie that's bad, you go on Twitter and you see all these people being like, oh, this actor, they're this and that. And it's like, the actor didn't write the script. The actor didn't do that. It's like they were literally paid to show up, say the lines, and leave. So it's like, why is this person getting the blame? So, you know, we did a whole podcast about that. You know, there's just different ways and to look at the movie world and to kind of discuss, you know, debate and discourse, whether it's, did you like this movie, did you not like this movie, or do you think that this was a good decision for that person, did you think this was not a good decision, whether it's like an actor turning down a role or something. And we had to take a break from the show, like the podcasting, to finish up the movie. And as you can tell from all the boxes around me, I'm getting ready to move, and once I move next week, we are going to set up a new studio and bring the podcast back. So we're really excited about that. And it'll be me.
Okay, because you had a partner, Ryan. I noticed you were working together. He's also did some acting with you. I noticed you two did it. But
yeah,
you also
yeah.
did it yourself. You also did it yourself in some episodes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ryan was an old partner of Movie Nights. He's no longer with the company. But we did do a whole lot of episodes together, and it's, you know, memories that I really like, and it was a lot of fun doing those.
Yeah, can you tell me any outstanding ones? I mean, you've had over 50 episodes. Can you tell me some of the more outstanding ones that come to mind? I mean, not to say to go through all of them, but
yeah, one off the top of my head that we were talking about is very recently the Oscars changed up some of the categories and what they would mean, and one of the changes that they made was there used to be Oscars for best sound editing and best sound mixing, which are different things, but the running joke, which, you know, and I'm not saying this is true, but there was a running joke amongst people who watch the Oscars and people in the industry of, I don't know if people in the Oscars really know the difference between sound editing and sound mixing, because whenever you watch the show, the movie that won sound editing probably should have won for mixing, and the one that won mixing should have won for editing. So then the Oscars came out one year and they were like, hey, now it's no longer best sound mixing, sound editing, it's best sound. It's going to be one award now. And Ryan and I were talking about that, and we basically were just going on about how we just thought that was so funny, and a joke that we ended up making was, he was like, I wish they would just include every audio piece in one award. So it's not just best sound, it's best music, it's best Foley work, it's best sound of the river going through the bay. And then I jokingly just went, yes, best noise. Let's make an award for best noise. And like that, and we just both cracked it up laughing. And that was one of the more fun memories of just kind of debating the new Oscar rules.
That's neat. That is neat. That's nifty. Yeah. Obviously, to do this successfully, you have to have a real love and passion of movies. Now, obviously, to see quite a few movies and go back and forth. I was wondering, is there anybody in particular that would have been inspired you on this, or is this just something that you just decided to do, you know, because of your love of movies? I mean, there's a reason why you created something like this. Now, how did you go about creating it from the beginning? Where did you get the idea of movie nights? And
well, in terms of like inspirations, like filmmaking inspirations, I kind of split that up into two different categories. You know, there's the people who made me fall in love with just the art of movies and the idea of movies. Right. And then there's people who inspired me to be like, I can do it too. Like, I can make a movie too. Like, you know, because, you know, you can really love something and not want to do it. And so my love of movies started as just, oh, I love movies. And then eventually it turned into, oh, I can do it too. And like, the ones on the side of, oh, wow, movies are just so magical and this is insane, is, you know, people like Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve. Like, their movies are insane to where, like, I sometimes watch their movies and then halfway through I'm just like, I should probably quit doing this because I'm never going to make anything that good. And then on the other side of, you know, people who've made movies who did it with low budgets, did it with no backing, did it not from Hollywood, and yet they still made a movie and got it through. There are people like Kevin Smith, who made the Clerks movies. You have people like Richard Linklater, who made movies like Dazed and Confused. You have these people who just specialize in these really low budgets, but basically it's the proof of the theory that a good story is a good story. And it doesn't matter how much money you have or where you come from. If you can tell a good story on film, it will translate to the people watching it. And so, those are a lot of the inspirations I kind of have for going into filmmaking.
I see. Well, they're no longer alive, but so one of the greatest critics in the past. In fact, you can still see them today. I've seen some of the comedy episodes of them, and they don't always agree on everything. In fact, when they don't agree, they can really get into it emotionally. I'm talking about Siskel and Ebert. Mm-hmm. Those were in the day. Those were the guys when it came to movie reviews. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I mean, it's just the way they came across. It was very entertaining. What do you feel about that? What's your opinion on Siskel and Ebert?
I'm a big Siskel and Ebert fan. I sometimes there's Good Samaritans who take old episodes of theirs and they put them on YouTube, and you can actually go watch some of and that the internet can be very cutthroat. It can be very love or hate. You either give a movie a 0 or a 10, and it can be a nightmare. But something that Siskel and Ebert did on their show is they would have a disagreement, and instead of attacking the other one, they would joke, but instead of actually getting upset with how the other person felt, they would kind of open the discussion of all right, well, this is why I feel a certain way. Why do you feel that way? And then you hear the opposition. And while they can sometimes still stay at a disagreement, the audience, it was great for us because we got to go into the minds of these movie lovers and see and hear what their thought process was. And sometimes you can watch a movie and you feel a certain way, but you can't quite put words to how you feel. And then you would hear something that one of them said and you were like, that's it. That's how I felt. He perfectly put it into words for me. And, I wish that there was more people on the internet who were like them and encouraging open discourse and debate, but without encouraging, rudeness and name calling. So it's kind of a lost art form.
No, it was entertaining. Sometimes they want to get each other's throats, but they still were friends. But it was very entertaining. That it was. Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know if that might have had some inspiration for you also in creating the movie nights. That's what I was thinking. No,
it was. It did. A lot of different movie reviewers. A modern movie reviewer that I really admire, his name is Chris Stuckman. He has a YouTube channel, and he actually just is going to make a movie now. But his YouTube channel really also helped break down how to describe movies or how to kind of get your thoughts out about movies. And so watching his channel a lot for over many years was an inspiration. And also back when Collider used to be good, there was a YouTube channel called Collider, and they had this thing called Collider Movie Talk, and it was literally ESPN for movies. And that's the main inspiration for the Movie Nights show, and the Movie Nights podcast was just that was such an interesting thing. And that show is no longer on the internet. It's been canceled, but there's a missing hole in the internet space for a show like that. And, the leader of that show, John Campea, he now has his own YouTube channel, and, him and that show was also really inspiring to that. There's an audience for this. There are people like me. There are people who love movies, want to talk and participate and hear about movies, but they just don't have the channel or the outlet. And just seeing those type of things exist kind of validated my feeling of I can't be the only one who just wants to openly talk about this stuff.
It looks like you get in detail just about your review. What you like, what you don't like. You go into the budget of the film. It sounds like special effects or costuming or a variety of details. Mm-hmm. Which is excellent. It just shows your love of movies, and you study it, and you really have a passion that comes through. That I must say.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, why are the actors responsible for bad movies? I mean, that's an example right there.
Yeah.
Right. Now, there's also another thing. There's called it's not called Rotten Eggs. It's called Rotten Tomatoes. They give their views. A certain percentage of views, I guess, will get you the positive side, the positive tomato, and I think if it's negative, it's lower and everything. What do you think about that, about Rotten Tomatoes as a movie reviewers?
I really like Rotten Tomatoes, and I know that there's some criticism of Rotten Tomatoes and how people a lot of things like, oh, can you believe this movie has this score when this movie has that score? But really, a lot of people don't really know how Rotten Tomatoes actually works. Like the website itself doesn't give a score to anything. It's just what it literally does is it takes reviews from critics all around the world, and then it judges, and now the critic will actually, or if they're certified with the website, they'll tell them like it's a positive or a negative review. And so that percentage you see, like if a movie has 63%, that's Rotten Tomatoes saying, we've read all the reviews and 63% of the critics said it was a good movie. And, or if the movie has 90%, it's like, all right, we've read all of the reviews and 90% of the critics have said this is a good movie. And so I think it's a really interesting tool to utilize and look at when you're looking for movie reviews, that percentage number, while it unfortunately can be make or break for some people, which, I still think you should see movies that don't necessarily have the best score. Like my favorite movies to see are the ones with the score in the 50s, because it literally means half of the critics liked it, half did not. So it's like you got a 50-50 shot of just like, of what I mentioned earlier about not having any preconceived notion right there. Just like, all right, this is a half and half. Let's go check this one out, because sometimes you'll be really pleasantly surprised.
So it gets your attention. Something you think may not be so great turns out to be great.
Exactly, yeah.
Or it could be the other way around. Something you think is horrible turns out to be great. That's right. You never know. You never know. I remember when I went to Cal State University in Northridge, I had a class in movies called TV Film Aesthetics, and I found that fascinating. He had all kinds of movies. That was about Frank Capra, the top filmmaker, producer. He did movies like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. The other one, It's a Wonderful Life. That's a movie. You can see that over and over again. It brings tears to your eyes every time you see it. No One is a Failure Who Has His Friends an Angel, One His Wings. What a movie. And then, you got a movie like Cocoon. It's another great one. And there's just so many of them. It goes on and on and on. Yeah. So,
Yeah. And you mentioned Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I love that movie. I mean, everyone loves It's a Wonderful Life, but particularly with Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, a fond memory watching that. I was younger when I saw it. I think I was 11 when I saw the movie, and it's an older film, and I didn't know what a filibuster was. So, and they mentioned it a couple times throughout the movie. They say filibuster, filibuster, and I'm literally like looking at people, and I'm like, all right, I have to ask like what this is, because I felt dumb. But then you get to the moment in the movie where he does the filibuster, then I was like, okay. I was like, I get it. And so but I remember just being nervous, like looking around, like, what does that mean? Like, what, like, how do I figure this information out?
Yeah, I remember growing up too. I remember some science fiction movies like, let's see, there was Future World, and there was The Boy with Green Hair. There was also another one. What is that? Something to do with Martians. I'm trying to think. It was about the creatures living underground, flying saucers. I'm just trying to think of the name of it now. That sounds. I can't.
It sounds familiar, but I'm not pulling up the title either. It's not registering.
Oh, well, yeah, The Boy with Green Hair. That was a great movie. Dean Stockwell in there. That was something. Remember Rebel Without a Cause? I remember things like that. Those kind of movies. Splendor in the Grass, Natalie Wood. Those movies were great.
Yeah, and you mentioned sci-fi movies. Back in the 50s, 60s, there was a lot of great sci-fi television as well, like the original Twilight Zone, groundbreaking stuff. And when you mentioned the movie about the Martians, it reminded me of the Twilight Zone episode of To Serve Man, where it's about aliens that come down and no one knows if they're here to help or hurt us, and they have a book and it says To Serve Man, and they're all like, oh my gosh, they're here to help us, this is great. But then, my mild spoilers, by the end of the episode, someone translates the book and finds out that it's a cookbook, and it's like this huge moment of like, oh no, we gotta go stop them. And just stuff like that being on TV way back when is just it's so cool to think about.
Right, movies like King Kong, those were great in the past. Oh yeah, all those. I think it was called Earth versus Flying Saucers or something like that. It was something.
Oh yes.
Yeah. They had some great Well, Spielberg, of course. I mean, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Hmm.
He did quite a few. He did
Oh, yeah.
E.T. Did a lot of them.
Jaws, one of my personal favorites.
Jaws was
Indiana
another one.
Jones. Hmm.
Oh yeah, that's true. Doomsday, Indiana Jones. Oh yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of genius directors and producers around. They're all over the place. So you're fascinated by it. So what your purpose of the movie nights? It sounds like was to create something that was better than was already being done, something that you truly love, to bring to life and see if you can make it better than what's already existed. Is that correct? That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, in a way. But basically, creating movie nights was, one, just to have a company to write and direct my own films, my own short films. But, I feel like, and it's a situation where not a lot of people are kind of taking advantage of, if you're going to represent movies, you don't just have to represent making movies, you can represent the conversation about film. You can represent all kinds of things, all-encompassing things about this amazing world of film and filmmaking. And the goal of movie nights was to not only add to the development and creation of our own films, but also add to the conversation and be a part of a new generation of online film punditry.
Well, that's exciting. And there you go. You're trailblazing, and you're leading the way there, Dalton. You're doing something you feel that's in your heart. It truly is. It's not something that you're forcing yourself to do. It's something that you truly love.
Yep.
I can feel it. I can hear it.
Yep. Just loving, just trying. Just kind of do what you can.
That's all anyone can do. Why do you think that some people now succeed in becoming successful in entertainment, and some people, no matter what, for some reason, they fall by the wayside. They don't make it.
I think honestly, part of it is to just never get started, and you can't steer a car that's in park. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like even if you make a 1-minute film on an iPhone with your friend, you can technically call yourself a filmmaker, and you've already done more than half the people who said that I want to be a filmmaker one day. You've already made something. And no, it's not going to be the most professional thing. No, it's not going to be IMDb official, but you did it. You made something. Now you can take the lessons that you've learned and continue and apply it in the future. And just, baby steps starting. And I think where people get caught up or wanted to quit are just people who never actually start and get kind of caught up on the technical levels of it all and just don't give it a shot. I think that's the big difference.
Let's see. And how do you yourself, I mean, let's face it, that there's a lot of rejection in the business, not just entertainment, all kinds of fields, but entertainment especially. How do you handle rejection yourself, and how do you overcome it? How do you?
Yeah, no, especially on actor sides. Any actor will tell you rejection is literally part of the job. But from a filmmaking perspective, rejection's tough. I've had situations where I've made a short film and then I had an investor say, hey, I really like that. Let's have a conversation and let's, turn it into a feature film one day. And you have the conversations, you get all excited, you're ready to pitch, and you really want this to happen. And then they don't respond to you, and they never talk to you again, even though they really seemed interested in what you want to talk about. Then you have some that will have the meeting with you and then say, all right, let's have another meeting in 2 weeks, and then you never hear from them again. And it's you got to deal with that stuff kind of all the time. And the biggest way to deal with it is create. Just keep creating. Because for example, if someone tells you, oh, I'm really interested in your thing, write me up like if you're doing a television pilot and someone says, write me up a new episode. And then you go, oh, and you get all excited and you write a new episode, and then you go to a meeting and that person doesn't show up. You might think to yourself, wow, I wasted all that time and for nothing.
Right.
Well, look down at you. You have a new episode of your show that you started. And yeah, maybe that guy didn't show up, but guess what? Now you have a new thing. And, it's basically just looking at the bright side of things is the best way to deal with rejection, I guess.
So in other words, you're looking at the good part of it. At least something happened. And if you're persistent, you just can't let the rejection get to the best of you where you just feel, I can't do this. That's what some people do, and they move on to other things, or they just give up. Once you give up, like my former boss used to say, once you give up, you're finished. And he's correct in anything you're doing. Mm-hmm. So you've got to see yourself doing it. You've got to have a good positive attitude, and I guess do your best to not let things get you down. concentrate on the positive. That makes a lot of sense. That it does. Now let me ask you something, Dalton. If you had to do anything over again, is there anything you would do differently as far as your career and what you've done, how you started and what you've gotten, and through what you're doing right now? Do you have any regrets, or is there anything that you might do differently?
I mean, the what if game is always fun, but I think if there was something that I would try again is I would take the people, because we've had some people be a part of movie nights and then you find out later that they weren't a good addition to the team and they were actually a little bit toxic to the team, and then unfortunately they leave. And I would just take the information that I knew about those people, go back to my old self and say, hey, this person seems really enticing and seems like they want to help, but in the future, they're just going to let you down. I wish I could just kind of warn myself of, just because someone likes your passion doesn't mean that it's going to equate to their equal level of enthusiasm about the thing. And it's just a lesson that you have to learn, is to be careful in who you kind of let in, and you have to just make sure that blatant enthusiasm isn't the same as passion, and you kind of just have to learn to differentiate between the two and learn who to associate yourself with to set yourself up for better success. Okay,
so in other words, if you knew then what you know now, then you'd be able to do things differently. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Of course, but nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows when they start what's going to happen later down the line. They just don't know.
Yep, and that's the thing.
That's how you find out.
Mm-hmm.
Live and learn. Okay. Do you have any advice now for people? Say they want to be a filmmaker, a producer, a director, a writer, or even a podcast host. Do you have any advice for people aspiring for any of these careers, what they should do?
I'd say any advice that I have, first of all, needs to be taken with a grain of salt, because I'm still, I haven't made a feature film yet. I still have a lot of work to do myself. But in terms of any advice to anyone who wants to get into filmmaking, and then the good news is this advice applies also to podcasting and YouTube channels and whatnot. And it's the advice that I gave earlier, and it's that just start. Do something. Even if I can't tell you how many times I've made a film when I was with my buddies in middle school and high school, watched it over, and it was the worst thing I've ever seen. And it was just like, no one can see this. But guess what? You did something, you learned, you remembered what didn't work, what does work. And if I didn't do that dumb thing and make the thing that I never want to be released, well, then I wouldn't have known how to fix it. I wouldn't have known how to make it better. Same thing with podcasting. Even if you don't have the best microphone, even if you're just using your phone, do something, start something, because eventually someone will see it, or someone knows what you don't know and say, hey, you should look at this thing. They have this really nice piece of equipment that can help you. But, in order to have those conversations and do those things, you have to just start and do something.
So you got to fall down before you get yourself back up. You can learn from your mistakes, but if you don't do anything, of course, you're not going to. It's like if you're driving a car. If you don't put it, if you don't start the engine up, it's not going to run by itself.
Exactly.
You got to start it up, and you got to get going.
And then, and even if you're driving 5 miles an hour, eventually you'll get there.
Right. Oh yeah. So there you go. Now, do you have any? Let me ask you something, Dalton. Do you have any present projects right now you're working on? You have any particular projects that you're working on right now that are very important to you?
A couple. I'm working on turning The Local into a feature film script. The goal with that film was to hopefully get some interested investors to put some money together, and so we can make a feature version of that film. I think that anyone who sees that film knows that it's a feature-length story just put into half an hour, because there's a lot more story to tell and a lot more to do there, and it's something that we're really interested in exploring. Also in October, I'm producing and starring in a television comedy pilot that Movie Nights is going to be producing. Really looking forward to that. And then early next year, a thriller, serial killer, murder mystery type movie. So we're looking forward to all of those things.
Wow, you've got a lot going on there, Dalton. That's great.
Oh yeah.
And is there anything now that you haven't done, like a wonderful dream project that you really can see yourself doing that you would like to do in the future?
Oh yeah, sci-fi. I would love to do a sci-fi, even if it's a short film, I would love to get to just some weird sci-fi stuff, and the big reason behind that is just budgetary. And we haven't been able to have the biggest budget on things, and to get the sort of necessary effects and makeup for a sci-fi type film, like a full-out sci-fi space thing. And but the good news is, on a storytelling level, I think it's something that we're all ready for, because whether it takes place in space or on the ground, stories are stories, and as long as they have, relatability to the audience and have arcs for the characters and are overall compelling, doesn't matter where they're told. The technical holdup of the budget and the VFX and the makeup is just what's keeping us behind on doing a sci-fi film. But yeah, something I really want to do soon is do something sci-fi.
Great. You're picturing it, you're taking action, you're persistent, you're driven, and you're very passionate. You love what you're doing all the way around. You can feel it. That's great. You want to check out I have a documentary of myself. You want to check it out sometime. I don't know if you had a chance to see a movie trailer or even see the movies. Check it out. It's called Gong, G-O-N-G.
G-O-N-G. I'm writing this down right now, sir. G-O-N-G.
Gong, not gone, but Gong, but not forgotten. The original Johnny Blaze story. Former Gong Show winner, which I am, an Elvis impersonator, which I am, strives to host his own late night talk show, which is what I'm doing. My co-star played Mr. Belding, the principal, in Saved by the Bell, Dennis Haskins. And
wow, yeah.
And True Don Blue was the host of the Gong Show in the day. He's in it. Also, Joey Carbone, who was the musical conductor of the Gong Show. Be sure to check it out sometime.
That's amazing, yeah.
On Amazon. Yeah, it's on Amazon. You can either download it or you can rent it, either one or the other. Yeah.
Write that down too, Amazon Prime, which I do have.
And if you like it, a positive review is always appreciated, of course.
Of course.
Right, very good. And if you want to go to my website and see some of the things I've done, go to johnnyblaze.com, JOHNNYBLAZE.com.
Blaze.com. Thank you, sir.
Yes, I have a YouTube channel. But anyway, what I do want to say is, how can, if people really want to, if they want to find out more about you, Dalton, reaching out, say the media and everything, social networks, or how can people find out if they want to find out more about you?
Really easy. You can follow both me and Movie Nights on various social medias. Myself personally, I have a personal Instagram, which is just at Dalton Burdette. That's where I do a lot of my social media-ing, that and Facebook as well, just my name, Dalton Burdette. For Movie Nights, I encourage everybody, especially if you liked what you heard in the interview, to go to the YouTube channel for Movie Nights, and Movie Nights is spelled with a K because we think that we're clever. And on the YouTube channel, you can find links to the official short films we've done. You can find the podcast. You can find other crazy stuff, movie-related stuff, different reactions to various things. And also on Movie Nights, we are on TikTok. You can follow us there at Movie Nights, and on Instagram at Nights_movie.
Well, so people shouldn't have any problem finding you.
Oh, yeah, no. If you find a link to one, you'll find links to the others.
And, of course, there's any relation. I don't think there's any relation, but there was a baseball player, Lou Burdette.
Lou Burdette, the baseball player for the Milwaukee Braves. Oh, yes. I am related to him. We're very, very distant cousins.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes.
You are? I wasn't sure. I mean, I thought, well, maybe there's many Burdette.
There's a minor difference in the spelling, but that's just an old family story about when they came over. But yeah, no, Lou Burdette is a very distant cousin of mine.
Oh, I didn't know that. But I just thought I'd take a chance and see if perhaps there was a connection. And sure enough, it turns out there is. You never know. Like Tom Hanks said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never quite know what you're going to get. Hopefully something sweet. Like Tom Hanks was great too. You remember his movies? Yeah. Sleepless in Seattle, that's a classic. Mm-hmm. You've got Email. You've done so many of them.
Forrest Gump, Philadelphia.
Oh yeah.
So many good ones. Mm-hmm.
Tom Hanks, he's phenomenal. Meg Ryan too, is great actors. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that's great. So we got a good idea about you, Dalton. You're versatile. You're talented. You're intelligent. You're driven. You're very passionate, and you're very interesting. You're on the way up. That's for sure. So I do want to thank you so much for being my guest on the amazing Original Johnny Blaze Show. You've been a very interesting guest, and all I can say to all my fans and friends Always keep a smile on your face and a song in your heart. Happy trails and blaze out.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to be on a Zoom entertainment talk show, please send us an email to amazingoриginalJBshow@gmail.com. Remember, all of our guests receive a free DVD of their appearance on the show. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of our shows receive at least 1,300 views. The amazing, original Johnny Blaze has just left the building. Good night and God bless. Mwah.